Hello everybody, my name is Eric. Today we're going to try and catalog the malware on YouTube, or at least these kind of fake cheat videos, because they are coming out non-stop, almost entirely from hacked accounts. So I thought it would be interesting to track down, A, which links are being used, which keywords. So we're going to use the YouTube API and a PostgreSQL database. I'm going to write the code in Python mainly because this doesn't need performance. There'd be no point in running it in Rust. Main thing we're going to run up against is that YouTube's API limit, especially for searches, has a pretty comically low quota of 10,000 calls a day, with each search costing 100. So if we want to use calls for anything else, because we can see, for example, if we run the Fortnite skin swapper quote in here, we can see what we get for that. Do we get enough of the description? No, we don't. Okay. So then we're going to have to hit the videos as well. So we're going to run the different payloads. Got to figure out how often we can run that, because we can run, let's say, 90 searches a day. We can also choose 50. Okay. So we can at maximum get, so really then that's actually going to mean that we're probably going to get all of them. We got to pick our keywords. Fortnite skin swapper is one of the worst. Now let's see if Valorant hacks is still as bad as it used to be. Yep. Valorant hacks is another one, and it's even the same channels. This NMK mathematics channel, which was originally a mathematics channel that seems to have been hacked very recently. Oh my, yeah, this is actually uploading at a much faster rate than they used to. Okay, see if thieves hack. Let's see if that's a good one. So, gonna put in our keywords, and then of course we can import the key. Don't use the method I use to avoid using a .m file unless you have a good. And the way that we're going to handle Postgres is we're just going to use psychopg2. And for that one, luckily, we don't have to do any authentication because I'm just going to use local trust authentication. Oh, right. Yeah, you got to do binary because compiling it doesn't work on modern Python. Now we can build our API client, which is easy enough to do. And then we do build. And then we can do service name is going to be YouTube. Version developer key is going to be our developer underscore key. Version is going to be our YouTube underscore API version. And now we can just, I always like to just test it. So you can just do that like this. No, actually one thing I will add, and this is so that if you import into Python on a different thing, basically this means if you add this, it will only run when the Python script is run directly. Okay, all good. So now we can actually do the search. Okay, and of course, given that we used a different keyword, we get a different result. But here we go, and we get what we were looking for. Now, what we need to do, because in order to really catalog the malware, what we need to do is get the full description. So we're basically going to do what is equivalent, like the same idea as a SQL join. So what we're going to do is we're going to extract our video ID from this, and then we're going to, for each video ID, go and fetch the full, some more. So the return object is actually a Python dictionary, which behaves functionally equivalent to JSON. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to go search and then just look at the request. And the list is then items. And then from items, we now get a list of dictionaries, which means we're going to have to do something with that. Now, the schema here, obviously, I'm using pandas, is kind of annoying because they actually, within each item, give you these two. These items are effectively useless for our purposes. And then we get this ID and this snippet. And we want to join those and then ultimately keep those. Now, there's a magical command in pandas called JSON normalize that solves all of our trouble in just one line. Before I learned about this, I would make a really janky for loop, but there we go. So now we have this exactly as we want it. So if we want to get the other data, we'll make a list of the video IDs. We also probably want a unique list of the channel IDs. So there's a few ways of getting that, but what I would usually do is channels equals df snippet channel ID, and then I will turn the list into a set so that we get a unique. There we go. So we've now got channels. If we wanted to run anything on that. Videos was always going to be unique, so we don't have to do anything for that. Now the next thing we're going to do is create a pandas apply function in order to get the full video description. And now we've achieved what we want. And we've got our different pieces here. Snippet. Although, have we got the statistics piece? So if you want to do it row-wise, this is how you do that. I mean, column-wise, I can never remember, but I know what I mean. So we do that, and now we've got the full description. And now we've got everything we want in this data frame. Well, except for these useless things, but that's not a big deal. Because basically all of this we want. So now we should make our database schema. So I'm going to go psqlu postgres. So we're now in after a bit of mishap because I accidentally installed 2 versions of Postgres when I was setting up the server. So the first command, of course, is we create a database. So we're going to create a database. We're going to call it YT Malware. Doesn't matter what you call it, just remember it. And then we got to think about our schema. So what do we actually want to store? So the way I usually like to think about this is I will just make a .sql file. So we're going to call this ytmalware.sql. We got to think, what are we storing? Create table. So what do we want? A video ID. I'm just going to call that a text field. You could also make that one a varchar or even a chil because it's always the same length. Channel text. Description text. Viewcounts hint. Upload date. Timestamp with time zone. And I always like to go back and look over the data and just make sure I'm not missing something that we're going to want. So I'm going to create the table. Oh, and one thing I always forget with SQL is it's very important you don't put a comma at the end. Oh yeah, I guess, should we make a primary key or should we? So that's important. The reason we want that is so that if we catch it multiple times in a search, and then we can potentially see when it stops showing up in captures, because that could be useful. So I think we got this right. Okay, we now have a table. Except I did something dumb. I didn't actually connect to the YT malware database. So what we do then is we just drop the table we didn't mean to create. And there we go. You know, I said my other programming language and I upset some people when I said Rust is the best programming language. Well, I don't know if I'm going to upset people or make them think, but I'm going to say the most underrated programming language, if you want to call it, well, I think it is technically Turing complete, is SQL. I think if you're into data, or of course if you're into hacking for totally unrelated reasons, being able to use SQL rather than just using an ORM or ChatGPT is a big advantage. Random note about SQL, if you want to insert them in a different order, only insert certain things, this is where you can make that choice. And the thing that matters is that the data you provide in the values clause is in the same order. Also, I don't know if it's me and if I have like a mild form of dyslexia, I can never keep track of like doing the %s's. So what I do is I copy and paste it and then I just replace them and then we always have the right number. And then we do that again when we're passing them as values, and we can do that. The safe way is when you do it like this. The unsafe way would be to just use a string formatting, but that, especially if you were to create a public application, could create a SQL injection vulnerability. This does not. And now we can see if I got all of this right blind. So we can now change this to this, get the df this way. And I made the classical pandas mistake. You do df equals df, not keep the df. Okay, now we didn't get any errors, which should mean that we may have ingested this. So let's find out. We can just simply see. And of course, because we have big text in here, this is going to look a bit weird, but yes, it works as intended. So the only thing we have left to do is replace this with a for loop in keywords. Ideally, actually, we would put the keywords in the database so that it would be more robust, but we can do that later. And now we have a simple program that we can run once an hour. So how do we go about doing that? Well, the way I'm going to do it is we're going to create a shell script, and we're going to cron tab it. The reason we use the shell script is because our environment can be different. That will run with this folder's pipenv. And now, once this is going, let me just validate that the run.shell works. Oh, right, yeah, of course, we've got to do... This will take a few minutes to run because there's quite a bit of queries it's got to run. We can make this faster with async, but given how crippled YouTube's API limitations are, I'm not going to bother. Now just check there's actually one in the database. We can actually sort them by date. And it's even user-friendly enough to help me when I type it wrong. And we got to do desk, and then we can do limit 1 so that we only get one result. And here we go. Yep. Nailed it. I'm guessing, yeah, that's the European date, right? Because otherwise it's a future date. So now we just go to cron. Well, we do pwd, so we remember where we're working out of. Okay, we're in root malware tracking. So then we do cron tab -e. We'll use nvim. Doesn't matter what you can use what you like. Now, if we want to run this every hour, the command we can do is we'll run it freshly on every hour. Bad day of the week. Yes. Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay. So now that will run every hour. And now all we got to do is sit and wait. I'm going to let this run overnight and maybe give it a bit longer. And we can see how many videos we catch, how many different samples, because I'm trying to see what the density is. All right, we're back. So we've got some data after about a day. And one thing I noticed is what I was expecting, which is there's a lot of duplicate links. So if we've got 300 records, about 40 of which are false positives, which I flagged using some heuristics, we've only got 48 links. And some of these are discords, which some of them are clearly related to the scams, some of them are not. But mostly what we get are a bunch of Mediafire links. Mediafire seems to still be the host of choice, along with various passwords. And we also get a few that are not quite valid links, like this one, where actually this link is not going to work because of the file password. We get this one. And in many cases, and this is why you'll see, because one of the trends that's sort of new is some of them have actually got their own websites. But if you look at any of these websites, what you'll notice, and we'll open them in a second, is they're always generic because they're always targeting multiple games. So here is Mr. Best Game, which is a comically bad designed website that claims to offer a trove of pirated games, cheats, just about everything you could want. Now, is this site legit? No. You can immediately tell this is not legit. And one of the ways you can tell actually that something isn't legit is if most of the functionality advertised on a site doesn't work. It's probably just there as a red herring to make the site look bigger than it is. Now we've got video instructions. Is this YouTube? No, this is embedded. So we go to how to download. Oh, and that just redirects us to Google Drive, which gives us unlock.exe and pals.txt. Now, unlock is a new upload from the 10th of June, but pals.txt has been here since March, so we can safely assume this Google Drive's been going for quite a while. Now, if we open the password, these guys have actually got... these guys are a bit more professional, but you can generally... One of the fact that it's using a password is a red flag. Now, I always wonder why the scanners couldn't potentially be smart enough to figure out that if the password is somewhere in the text. And of course, one possible giveaway could be the fact that this is a very generic name that actually seems like it's probably intended to be a fake crack. And immediately, we can see that this file has been distributed under a number of different names and is very clearly is a couple, like most of these videos don't get much views at all. Well, I mean, even the top videos don't get like a lot of views, but 700 on an intent keyword is meaningful because that could easily be the conversion rate is probably like 10%. So that could be 70 victims. So that's actually pretty concerning. But the good news is if we actually drill down to any of these videos, for some reason the copy is copying the entire column instead of the single value. Oh, I think I'd accidentally selected it. Okay. So if we go to a single video, what we can see is if we then search by capture time, is that all is not quite as it seems. The initial capture, which on this video was a while after upload, was at 599 views. That ticked all the way up to 782 before an hour later, there was a purge. And kind of stayed there, and then it ticked up a bit. So probably most of those views are fake. Now, it'd be interesting to know if they're using their own malware to fake them. You can also look and see how frequent the uploads are and whether the links are changing or not. It also seems like an increasing number of them are using Discord as a venue. I kind of like that because then I can at least join in and possibly have a conversation. Now let's just check out what this video is. Now this video could be a false positive because this doesn't look as obvious. Let's just take a look. This is, well, by false positive, I mean as in it's not a hacked channel. It could very well be fake. And this is a red flag. Let's see. Okay. I love Cloudflare. They protect all of the sketchiest sites. Well, I don't know. This one is kind of more of a gray. It still probably shouldn't be on YouTube because I can pretty much guarantee you that's fake, but at least it's not one of the more obvious stealers. Now, the other thing they seem to be doing, and I don't know if they're using hack channels to do it, is they put up the fake comments. We can tell that this is not a legitimate upload. The gaps in uploads and then the sudden spike can be one red flag. The password in the description is a very common tendency. So this one is supposedly it's an anti-ban. Now this is sort of a new format where they use a Google site instead of Google Drive and we get a link. This one is, I would say, about a 10 out of 10 in terms of how obvious it is. And ultimately we still end up on Mediafire. But I don't know if they think putting that little interstitial there is actually going to prevent YouTube from catching on. I don't know why the first few times when I type the same thing. Okay, and Defender has already caught it. So this is a Luma stealer. Okay, so we've got some... So now we've got the number of each link. So a lot of these are, in fact, one-offs, which I guess they... A lot of these are the same file uploaded to different links. But then we get a couple of big hits. So this is one trend. The youtube.com/@downloadmidnight. What these guys have done is they've got an on-site link as opposed to an off-site link that goes here. Should still work. And here we go. Now this one has a Russian download. Melotony installer.rel. Unfortunately, this Russian server seems to be lacking in download speed, but that's okay. Okay, and here is another one. Now, this one actually did get a Defender hit somehow. So here is the file that everyone is being tricked into. Now, here's one of the red flags, is that it's got a bunch of garbage data that compresses very well. It is very unlikely that anything legitimate is getting compressed that much by a rel, and it's just a couple of megabytes over the limit. It's one of the biggest red flags, especially if it's like close but no cigar to the virus total limit. The question is just why. It's probably not that the software had to be 50 megabytes bigger than what virus total can handle. Now, this is Windows executable. The fastest way you can tell it is from this piece of text, but we already knew that because it's in exe. Oh, wow, this is a really small file. And you can actually, if you delete all of these zeros, you can actually upload the file to VirusTotal if you want to, because it will still work just fine. Now we've got a functionally equivalent, and you can tell because the icon is the same, file that's just 31 megabytes, which we can upload to VirusTotal fine. I had a previous attempt that I didn't notice wasn't the whole thing. So here we go. We'll drag this up. And now it can, of course, go on VirusTotal. No trouble. And it's pretty much agreed that this is malicious. Now let's see what all the different... Oh, Microsoft undetected. That's never a good sign. Although it did detect the original download, so I guess it's not all bad news. I feel like Microsoft, just because Windows Defender is by far the most used antivirus, has a huge impact. Now, that's kind of cool. It's even got like a fake open source, but it's not. The actual file is this, which is not open source unless I open it up in Ghidra, which I could do because from the look of it, it's not crypted or obfuscated, but I'm probably not going to do. Unless it ends up being too much of a pain to do. Okay. Now we're just going to run the exe, and I've got MITM proxy going, so if it does call any remote servers, we will know about it. Okay, no, it was a false alarm. The biggest issue with all the Windows telemetry is it actually makes network analysis kind of hard. So it just took a while to ask for admin. So I just kind of got sussed out by the fact that this was the type of information that an info stealer would tend to collect. So let's give FireRow some time. Don't know why VirusTotal is spamming our logs. And this would appear to be the payload has now moved itself into app data. Oh. It's just copied itself again to serious.exe. Not really sure why it would even bother doing that, but okay. So far, we still haven't... Oh. It's red line, but... Windows Defender. It's almost like a virus in the sense that I do know how to turn it off, but I usually just do that and it's fine. It's like... Oh, it was off. Okay, that's even weirder. So I guess the good news is it doesn't actually hugely matter because it's not going to... Okay, and here was our first C2 call. This went to liability share. But it seems like... Oh, it's lagged my browser. Okay, that's odd. Oh, it's a multi-megabyte file. Okay. Okay, let's just try and click off of that before it crashes in my browser. And okay, so here are the actual command and control servers. So, okay, then this is base 64, which we can, of course, decode because base 64 is not encrypted. Well, unless it is. So it probably is encrypted. So then we get IP address again, IP address again, IP address again. Oh, that's the response. Okay. And that's what keeps almost crashing my browser. Okay. So let's look at the requests of these as well. Liability share odlkv.shop. Okay. So that one looks to be a file because it's big. These are, we want to see the, okay, send message, file, software.txt. And this is supposedly plain text, but it doesn't really look plain text. Discord, okay, this is going to be the Discord token. Edge browser version, bunch of other stuff. I'm just going to dump these requests so that we have them. And we have the list of the command and control server. So if we did want to have any fun with that, we can do so. Now, I'm just going to watch for any requests to YouTube. And we're also looking to see if VirusTotal Sandbox has found anything. Because something I'm curious about, because a lot of people, including one Stealer developer I briefly talked to, said it's now very, very difficult to steal Google accounts with a Stealer. So I was wondering if there's an additional payload in addition to the red line that's actually going to sit and potentially use our own system to upload. Okay, it's got a spreader tab. So some of these sandboxes, okay, yeah, and it still goes to the same place. And these are the headers, so if you did want to send them some gifts, that might be helpful. I sometimes like to send the command and control server just a few presents. These are the files it goes for. It uses both Serious and WeMod, which appear to be the same file. Okay, I like that username. End unemployed, because he's going to make a bunch of money off of this. And, of course, it's going to try and disable Windows Defender. To Windows Defender's credit, Windows Defender actually did a lot of work, even when you turn it off, to stop you from running this. So that's the good news. Evidently, it's still doing well enough that 100 different links to it were uploaded on YouTube across several different channels. So, unfortunately, it's still succeeding. So that's going to be all for part 1 of this. Well, yeah, we're going to make another one probably in a few weeks after I've got more data. And from that, I'm going to analyze a couple of things. The lifetime of these videos, whether they're changing, whether the payloads are changing, and also how long on average these things stay up. Now, a lot of people say, why isn't YouTube doing more? And I agree, I would love to see YouTube taking a very aggressive step, but I also don't think they're necessarily doing a terrible job. The reality is, every time someone who runs this, who has a YouTube channel, does so, that channel is used. Banning the channels doesn't help, because they're ultimately going to reclaim that channel, and the ban will be overturned. So that would only slow things down. The only way they could really stop this is if they had a perfect automated filter that instantly removed anything that contained a malicious link. I would love to see them crack down a bit more on links, and especially on using some sort of pattern recognition to maybe see, but I don't think it's necessarily that YouTube are doing a terrible job. I think it's just a matter of it ends up being a very, very tricky problem to solve. Hopefully this video can maybe be helpful, maybe even to YouTube, to see sort of what do the patterns look like here? How could they tackle this more aggressively? That's going to be all for now. Thanks for watching.